So hi everyone. I think today we're going to talk about passionpreneurship, which is mainly about making money doing what you love. I'm Adeline and this is Ming. And today we'll be covering the topics of what encompasses passionpreneurship, what is passion, what is the entrepreneurship part, how is making money, balancing it with everything else that comes together with this big theme of it. So yeah, let's dive into it.
Adeline, so I have a question. I'm curious since we just get to know each other in less than a minute. What do you do?
I run a lab-grown diamond company.
So that's you.
Yes, it's
That's
me.
you.
Yeah,
That's
that's
her.
me.
Okay.
What have you heard?
Lab-grown diamonds.
Yeah, so that's me.
I was interested to meet the person who is. Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
the company is called The Better Diamond,
The better
and we do custom bespoke jewelry. Our bigger projects have included Miss Universe Singapore's crown for the last 4 years, and we work with niche luxury groups like Lamborghini and Rolls Royce. We do a lot of custom work for supercars and also home goods. So aside from jewelry, we're a bit more unconventional. And then we have a sister brand that's like ready to wear. So it's kind of two brands.
Cool.
That's like my main brand that I put out in front. I have like a food community brand as well and a fitness brand.
So you're an entrepreneur.
I guess I can call myself that now.
Would you call yourself a serial entrepreneur?
I don't know if it's serial, but
So you're not in the business of serious.
I am. I think I'm quite a serious person, to be honest.
Serious.
But I think this term like that's put out there, serial entrepreneurship, is it's a floating term on social media, on the internet, about people like doing a lot of consecutive businesses back to back, and it's almost like an addiction. I think when you get into that rigor and flow of like, oh, I have worked for myself, I've made a certain amount of money with this, I think I can transfer those skills into other aspects of my life, and I think you require to adopt a certain mindset to be in that. I'm not sure if this is just like a very trendy term that people like to put out there. It's just, like something that people's like a comfort label, like, hey, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I think to a certain extent it's a bit cringy. So I wouldn't really have identified myself as that, but
What would you identify yourself as?
I think I'm just someone that likes to look for opportunities and like how I can make use of those opportunities presented to me, or how do I make those opportunities for myself if it's something that I really want to put out there. And I think there's a fine balance between, am I helping myself fulfill certain needs that I want, or am I making an impact in society with what I'm doing? I think it's a very fine line, especially when it comes to passionpreneurship. Like, how do you convert those passions into something that's sustainable, or whether it's really just something to be parked on the side to just enjoy, right?
What are you passionate about?
I think I am definitely into fitness and food. Those are like the two brands that have definitely been birthed out of interest, like pure interest. But I do think that in general, what I do now is purely out of interest as well. It's a lot of things I'm naturally more inclined to, like the creative side of things, creating things that I always have this mindset where it's like, if you're going to use it, why not own it? If it's something that's really in your everyday, like to own the full process of it, like why not? And I think investing time and effort is already something you're going to do. Why not just try and see if it can be bigger? But I don't think you have to put a lot of pressure on yourself to actually make it like a huge success. I think a lot of people have that pressure thinking that, oh, to jump into it, this is what I have to do.
Is that they get into something and then they expect certain outcome.
Yeah, but I think it's very self-imposed, right? I'm not sure what your thoughts are on this, but I think pressure and stress is often self-imposed rather than like someone else putting an external pressure on you. I think like as Asian kids, like your parents will be like, no, you have to do this. But I think growing up in that rigor, like you transfer those experiences, maybe not traumas, experiences as a kid into like what you do, right? And I think people are always like, oh, I'm going to fail, so I won't do this. Or like, I don't think I can do this. And then they doubt themselves. So I think there's two ends to it. One is doubt, one is imposter syndrome. And then there is this whole debate about, is it even worth my time doing it? And like trying to make something out of it, right? That's why people always have full-time jobs and they try and hustle on the side. And then they decide, oh, do I want to do this full-time? I think there's no right or wrong to it, to be honest. it's what you are comfortable doing as well. But yeah, tell me more about yourself, and in terms of like entrepreneurship, what are your ideas around it?
What's the distinction between a business owner and an entrepreneur?
I think there's no distinction.
It's just a fanciful word, isn't it?
It is. It is.
I've been trying to figure this out for almost 10 plus years already. Because
What will you identify as?
Me?
Yeah.
No offense though, I'm really good at what I do. When it
course.
comes to my domain itself. And I try to, as much as, I reach a pinnacle itself, I come to realize that 一山比一山高. There's always a higher mountain.
Yeah.
And just when you think you figure everything out, and in that moment you realize the knowledge that you know of is just a small piece of a bigger puzzle, and that keeps me going.
Yeah.
So eventually, I mean, at first, when you can't see the first end point, you probably think that chasing money, is the end. You get a certain amount of money, and then that's it. Or you get a certain amount of fulfillment from the work that you do, that's it.
So you think that's the benchmark for success, right?
Correct. Because, at first, when you first start, you don't have those benchmarks, so you have to use what other people perceive.
Yeah.
But as I do the work, and being on the ground, all that kind of stuff, I come to realize that those benchmarks are not real. The way that they narrate about how the world is not real.
Yeah.
So most people have challenges adapting to that. Because they will be attached to that particular outcome or narrative.
Yeah.
But most people doesn't have the fluidity to say, you know what, this is not real. Let me let it go.
I think it's back to the point that I made about self-imposed, right? Self-imposed stress, self-imposed pressure to be a certain way and to appear a certain way to be presented. There's a lot of fear that holds people back as well. And then I wouldn't say it's a fake image people are living behind, but they try to create that image for themselves, right? And there's a lot of people out there who are like, oh, just fake it till you make it, or like, if you believe in it, like you will be successful. But there's a fine line for that as well.
I mean, are you religious as a person?
Not particularly.
When you were growing up, do you grow up in a girls' school or Catholic?
No.
So you're not.
I'm pretty neutral.
You're pretty neutral.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll put it this way. When do we say that we believe in something?
I think when you put your faith and grounding and
so when do we
values to
put our faith into something? When we can't verify
when you find,
that
yes,
it exists.
Yes.
I believe in God. Now, if you know that God is there, why would you have to say, I believe in God? We don't say, I believe I'm wearing a spectacle. I believe I'm wearing a shirt, because we know for sure that they're there.
Yeah.
So belief has this thing called faith element in it. And when you're really on the ground doing the work, it either works or you don't. Because every action that you do, there's an equal reaction force. And the equal reaction force is the feedback from the world. So you put something out there, the world is constantly giving you feedback. And you kind of adjust along the way. Most people find it hard to adapt and adjust because they are holding on to things that are not them.
Yeah.
They are holding on to something they believe to be real. But that's a form of holding on.
Well, I guess it could also be a seed for some people to start growing what they may not be able to find in that moment, right?
Possible. So in that moment of shattering, the illusions get shattered.
Yeah.
We have to make a choice. We adapt to what is real and what is actual, because there's a difference between reality and actuality. Reality is what's real for me, what's real for you. Actuality is what's actually happening.
Yeah.
The truth, objective reality.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, what do you think would trigger people into wanting to do something different? Like, I think everyone's crisis, like identity crisis.
Not necessarily identity crisis. Identity crisis means, simply put, right, you believe that this particular identity is you, and you hold on to that identity so badly until something in reality happens to you that tells you that you are not that person. So that is actually identity crisis.
True.
Whereas the kind of crisis I'm talking about could be a wake-up call. Like, your mom, is dying in the hospital. That's going to shock people because they know the fear of losing the mom is real now. It's not just a fear, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
What are they going to do about it? So my experiences, tells me that, people won't change unless there's a crisis happen. Not unless someone is disciplined and have strong willpower enough to keep going, to break down ceilings, to go for higher heights.
Yeah.
Because there needs to be a motivation. Because most people get comfortable in their comfort zone, which is an attachment.
How do you think people will break out of that comfort?
I mean, when crisis happen, that's when, they have to make a choice, because if they choose not to move, they'll end there.
Yeah.
But if they choose to move, that's where the river is going to bring them to. Because they are no longer resisting it.
But there's also people who don't do well in those situations, right? They become like paralyzed. It's like a disability to.
But that's a coping mechanism, correct?
It is.
That is a coping mechanism, because that's how, if I were to look at it, from young, maybe that was their coping mechanism. Every time something happened, they get stuck, they get frozen. That becomes a natural default direction. So of course, healing becomes important. Working on the trauma, becomes important. But in the moment, if there's a lot of consciousness, awareness around it, in the moment, they get paralyzed, can they snap themselves off from it?
Yeah.
That's where the inner work training comes in.
Yeah. So maybe you can tell the audience a little bit more about what you do, since you've mentioned like inner work.
I'm a inner work specialist. I'm also a teacher of personal mastery.
Have you engaged with a lot of entrepreneurs in your line?
I do.
Are they majority of like your clients?
I would say that it comes from all walks of life. It's by a season thing. I noticed that, I don't really, my work, I need to target this group of people. No, I see whoever that comes, they will find me. So there's a lot of, you can say, faith-based, trust-based. Trust and whatever that comes.
Yeah. So it's a lot about trusting the process in that. You mentioned like people are triggered into this because of crisis. And oftentimes they are in a state where they might need a lot more support than an average person walking on the street. How do you find being like, let's say, a passionpreneur, if they are going down that route and maybe they need some help with like in their current situation? How lonely would they be? And do you think this is like a solution for them to cope?
Wow, that's like 5 different questions in one sentence. I don't think they're necessarily related though. First and foremost, I think we have to take out the loneliness part, because the loneliness part, I think it's a myth lah. That, if you're walking your journey, it has to be lonely.
Oh, you think if you are...
I think it's a myth.
Oh, it's a myth. Okay.
I think it's a myth, a story, a narrative that people made up just because, they haven't necessarily find the right group of people who will support them on their journey itself. And on one hand, support is important, but on another hand, it's about you walking your own path as well. Carving out, whatever path that is, that matters to you. Am I getting your question right? So that was one part. You talk about loneliness. Then you also talk about the passion part.
Yeah.
Passion can keep us going. And the art is really how do we turn that passion into a tool that we can use to keep us going, and it becomes a beacon of our light. Because when things get difficult, most people give up.
Yeah.
And that's why they never make it. So since, you work with people from the Lamborghini Club, all these people, you should have seen or talked to them about their successes. And one of the common theme that they really would share is that the premise of working hard, right? In Singapore, they're talking about keep going, when things are difficult. You can work hard at the wrong things, but you're not going to get results.
Yeah.
You want to stick to something that give you results and just keep doing. Because result is like a feedback from the world. So you ask me, why do people resist changing? Because by Newton's first law, an object will continue to remain at rest or will continue to move in the line of motion until an external force is acted on it.
Yeah.
So the crisis is like an external thing that shakes their world.
Yeah.
So, but what happens if a person experiences crisis every single day? Then it becomes so normal to just move and adapt. So the speed of adaptation becomes so quick that it becomes so natural to their body that their body no longer get traumatized by it, because the body already got used to it. So it's really about putting yourself out there, because you can't live in a world where crisis wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But how can every crisis is also an opportunity? And how can we use that to further develop our growth and our development?
do you think like whatever you've mentioned, like the stresses and using passion to keep yourself going and turning into a beacon of light, how normalized do you think this is in our current society in terms of mindset in the people that you see? Let's say you meet X amount of successful people in your line of work. Like, do you think that their mindset is something that is normalized in society?
Then again, what is really success? Someone could be a multi-billionaire, but they still feel that they're not good enough because, they, their mother, never really was quite there for them. And then they thought that they are not loved.
Or like they're not enough.
So it's funny, isn't it? Because the grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Perhaps, people from a lower socio-economic status, they look into people from a higher socio-economic status. They think that their life is better. They want to have that life. But that's because they never really lived that life. Whereas, if you have $1 billion, you need to be responsible for the challenges that comes holding that $1 billion, because otherwise they will lose it.
Yeah.
So most people want something, but they don't think about what is it going to take for me to be there? What is it going to take for me to hold that? Instead, the first thing they think of is, how many luxury cars can I buy? How many luxury watches can I buy? As though it means anything. Because at the end of the day, they're still going to the grave. The same grave where dust to dust, ashes to ashes.
Oh, I think there's a increasing trend in people realizing that material goods doesn't necessarily bring happiness, right?
Then what brings happiness then?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, what do you think is like success to you? What's happiness and success to you?
So we talk about that. So of course, whether something is easy or difficult or whether something is struggle is really a perception thing.
Because so it's mindset.
It's a mindset thing because it depends on how you look at it. If you look at it as something that's going to develop you, then you better be excited about it because that challenges means that you're ready for the next level. So the purpose of a challenge is not to stop you, but it's for you to climb over it, to rise above it, so that you get into a new height.
Yeah. So that's your definition of success, like being pushed to move on to the next step. You're like, oh, I've achieved this level. So it's like gamifying it.
I think gamifying it, makes it more fun, isn't it? Because if you realize we're kind of in the matrix itself.
Yeah.
And why not make the fun of it? Treat everything like a game. So you have less detachment, or rather you have less attachment, you can detach more easily. You stop holding on to things and take things too seriously, and you be able to start laughing at things. Once you understand the cause and effect, that perhaps something that you're experiencing now is a cause of something that happened 10 years ago that you didn't really clean it or resolve.
Yeah.
So whatever you don't resolve is there. So that's why it's called clean your toilet. So it's a reminder to the guests, to always be responsible for your reality. Clean your mess up.
Yeah.
Take care of your toilet. Okay, stop using your maid to clean your toilet for you. Start doing your work. Start doing your chores.
You gotta be your own cleaner.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. So you ask me what is success? Does a cleaner who is cleaning on the street less successful than a president who is running a country? The answer is no, Because if it is in the soul to choose to be a cleaner in order for him or her to learn their lessons at a karmic level and also at the dharmic level, then that is their path, that's their calling.
That's their journey, yeah.
And that doesn't make him or her lesser than somebody who probably is running 10 companies or being a billionaire. And likewise, just because somebody is the president of a country doesn't mean that he's more than the people on the ground. The question is, are we on our calling? Are we on our path? Rather than following the narrative in the material world of what you should be and what you should not be, that, there's a lot of emotions attached to it, like guilt, shame, not enough, unworthiness. Can you say that this is the path that your soul has chosen? So instead of looking at yourself as a failure because you thought you were a failure because you believe and you subscribe to that narrative that the society you are in conditioned to believe, what if that was your calling? What if you are already on your path? Because how can you not be on your path in the first place if whatever that's happening is happening specifically at you? Since life doesn't come at you, life comes from you. Therefore, whatever reality you have, at many levels you chose it. Even if your relationships are functional or even dysfunctional, You chose it because you chose the other person. So you better figure out why did you even choose the things that you choose in your life? So until we make it conscious, we're gonna keep thinking that our life is like fate. But the moment we have that awareness, we can break the ceiling.
Well, I think it's also about, I think in your line, you might also see a lot of people not accepting that that is their fate. That's probably why they feel trouble also, right? So how do you help them with that?
It's really an attachment issue.
So they just have to detach and see it from a third party point of view.
Well, I like how you actually describe that because that's what we do in process work. You know, we have to detach ourselves from the roles and identities that we're holding on. Okay, if you're a mother of somebody, then you're going to look at it from a mother role. But you're also a daughter of somebody, but those two roles are different. So that's why people have conflicting belief system, because each of these things wants different things because of different value system. But what if we can detach our role, then we're no longer in a state of conflict. We can enter into a state of equanimity without any attachment. Then we can see things for what it is. Because the more you try to look at something, the more you're only looking at that thing, the more you don't see.
So what I'm hearing is that a lot of what you do is to help people progress, is to help inner work.
To help people make their life work.
Make their life better, yeah. How do you, on a
Not in my
personal,
own terms, in their own terms, depending on how they define it.
Yeah, but so because you are helping people rather than any other business that's like selling a product, it's just putting something on the shelf and people decide if they want to buy it. People come to you because they have already decided that this is the money they want to spend.
Okay.
How do you find that you balance your greater interest of helping people versus like taking their money for it?
I mean, it's kind of irrelevant because if you're adding value to something, this is the price for it. And you want, you take it, you don't want, then go to somebody else. I mean, it's an exchange. Yeah.
Okay. So you think in terms of like, let's say charging something for...
That's quite a very controversial and a hotspot topic, isn't it? Because some people believe that it should be less, some people believe it's more.
Yeah.
Then some people are getting in the, let's say you have 100 people in the class itself, 50 people get it. 30 other people get confused, which they will figure it out in the next 2 months. And then there's always this group of people who didn't do the homework and then it's not going to work for them. And then they start saying that it doesn't work. But it doesn't work because you're not a great student. How come it works for the other people? If it works for other people, means there must be a premise that it works. So is it a limitation of the technique itself that is not vast enough to cover the range of people and their limiting belief and their uniqueness, individuality? Or, simply is this a user issue? So my work, I teach people how to fish rather than giving them the answer so that they learn how to fish for themselves for the rest of their life. So that we can work on more exciting stuff rather than talking about the same issue again and again and again. So I always play a game with myself. How fast can I crack a case? So a 20-year issue getting resolved in 1 hour, that's fun for me. When this particular girl itself, she finally asked her dad the most important question that she wanted to know for 20 years of her life. And that actually liberated her, which solved the mystery of why she's not out there starting a business. The fear is the same. The anxiety is the same. So when we don't resolve certain parts of our life, sometimes it hinders our present time progress. But people don't see that because it's not so straightforward. It's a blind spot.
Interesting. Would you say will you value what you do more as if you're like, this is your job, right? So will you value the passion part?
I don't have a job.
You don't have...
This is my work.
This is your life.
Yeah, it's my life. Sometimes that conversation you have with somebody on the street is going to change their life. And sometimes they are not necessarily client or paying client, but they are somebody that you help. And sometimes, the seeds, take about 10 years, before they mature. But, the kind of impact you make to people actually remember it.
Yeah, I think there's something very close to my heart. And what I always remind myself of is that people may not necessarily remember what you do, but they always remember how you made them feel. It doesn't have to be really like someone around you, but it could also be just someone on the street who did something or said something that have impacted you more so in how you feel than what they actually did from that action. And I think that probably aligns quite a lot with what you do. And it seems like you're very passionate about touching and impacting people.
I can see that I kind of dedicate, more than 12 years of my life doing that. And, every moment itself, I feel fulfilled. Yeah.
Do you see that changing down the line? Or like if there's any further progression that you can do from where you are?
I mean, the form will always change, but the essence won't. The essence is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Just as, the essence of you is who you are. So you can start multiple business, but it all goes back to the singularity of the essence that makes you you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why they call it passionpreneurship, right? Because it's the essence of what excites you and what brings you back to your core and how you amplify that to the people around you and create that impact.
Correct. So once we get detached, about the form, about how things should be, what we should do, then, the world is really quite limitless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I definitely can relate to being restricted by your bounds of perfectionism. I think many people live by those boundaries and then they're stuck in this box where they're like, I have to do it this way. And sometimes just putting things out there, just like putting it out and testing the waters and seeing how people react to it. I think the experience is so much more important and uplifting than like sticking to what you think you have to do.
How do you feel about that? You've been asking me questions for the last 15 minutes.
How do I feel about what specifically?
Whatever you just asked me.
About...
You forgot the question.
I think I asked too many.
Okay, how about this? Let's start with this. Why don't you share with the audience the lessons, that you have encountered in your entrepreneurship journey and how you rise above them?
I think...
Personal experience.
I think my journey started out not from a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
It kind of was slow progression and realization over time that, hey, I think I knew for a fact that what I was doing before didn't really align with me. And I was really forcing myself within those boundaries of a box. I was boxed in because at the end of the day, it's not something that I would have done more to bring myself out. And I felt like there's no way I could really impact a business or myself or people around me doing what I did. And I think so right now, doing much more creative work and having that flow has shown me that, okay, one is definitely important to listen to your gut and and if you know that this is something that's not of natural inclination to you, maybe listen to it a bit more than just leaving it as that voice in your head. Sometimes people are like, oh, it's just a voice in my head. But I'm like, is it really? Because it's your subconscious telling you what you potentially should or could be doing.
But how do you know that subconscious is your subconscious and it's not something else?
It could even be a conscious, honestly, to that point. If it's already there, it's probably in your conscious. But I think it becomes sub when you push it back, right? When you force that thing to not be there and just live on with the rigor of I would say modern city life, which is what we are all very stuck in. I think for me, my experiences and what I've learned, the biggest thing is probably it's the people that you work with that matters the most. Work for would be in a corporate setting, right? But being a business owner, you work with a lot of people, whether they are your partners, your collaborators, or other owners and other founders where you come together. If you have a community that supports you and aligns with you specifically on values that you think could work, the end goal can be the same. But I think sometimes they always talk about the journey, right? So your end goal can be the same, but sometimes if your strategies are too differing, it's quite difficult to align. And I think at the end of the day, you can come up with a business and it can always pivot. The business might not be the same when it ended versus when it started, but it's the people who will carry it and be that change for the business. So at the end of the day, a business is a personality. It's the people who are running it, right? So that's the biggest takeaway I think I've had from the several businesses that I currently have, working with various partners. So all my businesses are actually dual founder businesses. So it's always two in the business. And I think it's quite interesting. And now that I'm thinking about it, I realized that all my business partners are males. So maybe it's also a dynamic thing where I think complementing your strengths and weaknesses.
Tell me more about your co-founders.
So I think, like I mentioned earlier, I have 3 main businesses and they are all with co-founders. And when I actually said it just now, that's when I realized, oh, hey, they're all male. So I'm not sure what this dynamic is. I haven't really like analyzed it myself, but my main business, the diamond one, is with my ex actually. So we were a couple when I first got into it, and now we're not. So navigating that, some of my experiences have not only been learned from the external side of the business, but like internally, how do you work with people, who makes the team? And I think when I mentioned like it's about the people you work with, that's really like a very big part of it. The other 2 businesses, one of it is with my current partner and another one is with a friend. This is like, so I have 3 distinct dynamics of all my businesses who are spread across my life, right? And I think each business gives me a different insight and perspective into how I can approach certain issues. So with the ex, like how do we solve past, whether it's baggage, trauma, like triggers, just like rubbing the wrong way, like small things, like you've seen so much of this person and you know them so well. How do you navigate that versus navigating something a bit more unknown, like with maybe my current partner who maybe I've not learned everything about, and like a friend who obviously up to a certain extent there's going to be some distance also, right? So I think for the one with a friend, I actually take a slightly different approach in that business where I am more on the ops side instead of the creative side of things. So usually for my other 2 businesses, I'm all about branding, personality, creating that voice for the brand. But in this scenario, in this dynamic, he has a bit of a stronger voice in that. And it's quite refreshing to sometimes not always do what you do and to take the opposite side of the business, which usually my business partners take, and their insights into the businesses outside of the one with the friend. So the one with the friend is for running and it's also purely passion. How do I see this business from a more ops and business side of things rather than just always being something that I like feel like I'm naturally inclined to do? That's quite interesting. And then bringing it back to the food brand that I have with my current partner is also pure passion. I think we both really enjoy food and like I think experience for us is a very big thing, which I can relate to because I would like to translate experience through my brands to whichever market we reach out, whether it's for the diamond, the running, the food. Like how do we create that experience? I think curation is such a floating trendy word, but it's actually very important. Curating it for you and like for what we spoke about before, like the purpose, your why, you have to curate. It's not like a thing where people are like, oh, I'm curating just to like have this image. You're creating for a certain purpose, right? I think that really holds you to your ground and gives you more reason to understand your why. When it's really like for you, like for you, and then how does that impact others around you? So yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic for sure. Thankfully, they're all kind of separate. And the nice thing about it is that also because these businesses are essentially me, I am definitely someone who enjoys fashion, enjoys the luxury space. I enjoy grinding out and working hard in a workout. And I find a lot of like fulfillment in that. And I enjoy like experiences or like social gatherings over food. Sometimes like the businesses can do overlap and you definitely growing it would have partners that can help you out in either or all. And sometimes I think in my head, I don't know whether it's just me, but I like to find synergies in like what I do.
Like you talk about diamonds over food.
Yeah.
And then after that let's go for a run.
Yeah. I've actually worn diamonds for a shoot with like workout clothes. So I'm like, how do I present things differently? I think that's something that I always like to think about. How do I, it's not just only being different, but like, is it really something that I would do? If I wouldn't do it, like, is it worth putting out there? And maybe it's for someone else to do. I think sometimes people get caught up in wanting to do everything. Like they're like, oh, if I if I own this diamond realm, I'm going to do everything about it. But in reality, you don't have time. Like we said, time is like your limit and also the most equal thing that everyone has. So it's like how you use it, right? Sometimes it's just, if it's not for you, like it's for someone else to do. And it's also accepting that. I think everyone has that with any other person. Let's say you and me, we probably have strengths and weaknesses that we could complement, but it's like, to what degree would that work for the business? I think when you think about that from that perspective, it is quite a significant part of the business itself as well, I think. And like running things, creating something together, you are eventually putting something out there. And I think for my businesses, compared to yours, it's putting a product there. It could be a service that leads into a product, but at the end of the day, the customer or the client gets a product. Whereas for yours, it's like the product is them.
Yeah, which is so intangible.
Yes, it's intangible.
Which sometimes, if a person is not aware, they can go what they just experienced.
Yeah, which is why I asked you, like, how do you tag that price to helping someone? Like, how do you tag that price to something so intangible where people need to see that they want that? They need to want that change, need to want to invest.
So for me, my game is very simple. This is my hourly rate. You get me to solve it. And usually people who get me, work with me, it's not for child play. It's for serious business.
Yeah.
Solving, real time problems, Usually, they get me because there's no other way they can solve it. So it's more like a final result. So that's the kind of not necessary position, that's why I notice, the basis of why people come to me in the first place. It's not for trials. Trials, there are plenty out there. You can find the right fit, do a chemistry test, but ultimately it's really about results. Results speak for yourself.
Yeah.
So on one hand, you can say you have changed as a person, but have your physical external world create that kind of manifestation or results that feedback your internal world shift. So that's very important. So as you were sharing, something pops out in my space. And you were talking about dynamic itself, you were talking about challenges, with business. I was wondering, what are some of the challenges you personally experience?
In terms of dynamic.
In terms of business itself.
In terms of business itself.
Okay, so why not let me start? Since, you triggered that whole conversation itself.
Yeah.
So as we were sharing, I look back on my journey itself, I remembered that, this wasn't really a business. It was a project, a long time ago. And so long story short, I created and designed a program. And then the people whom I kind of brought in, not as co-founders, but some people who was helping me, stole our program. Not only did they do that, they went to steal the clients of that. And then, as a final result, tried to demand money from me after stealing the website.
I laugh now, but it's actually not that funny in real time.
It's actually not funny. It's like you're wondering, it's so confusing. Like, what the fuck?
Like, why would people do that?
Yeah, because
it's greed,
before that, I was always operating on the premise that people are kind, people are good-hearted. I think that's when, it really brought me a very important lesson that not everybody are what as it seems. So stop projecting my
what
perception and my ideas of what I think the world is onto everybody and treat them equally. Because that treating them equally create a lack of boundary.
So like right now, what would you say?
So the funny thing is they took the thing, so they try to start themselves.
Yeah.
And they failed miserably because the program wasn't them. Like you said, I put them together. So I knew exactly how the puzzle pieces come together, whereas they don't. So long story short, within 3 months, even though they stole the clients, hurt my reputation, etc., they tried 3 months, it didn't work out, they went back corporate. And then since then, they've been trying to poach our clients. Still.
How do you set those boundaries for yourself now with this lesson?
One of the key things that I learned is really about. So how about this? Let me put it this way. So, it left me, in a very confused state, for a while. And then I decided that, what? Let me just do my work.
Just focus on my own path.
Just do my work, what I always would do. Even without people, I can still do it. And then that was when the results really showed me that those are also the same people that was holding me back. Because of the dysfunctionality, I have to tend to them all the times rather than going fully out there to help people. So I found myself, moving at a Lamborghini pace by myself. And of course, along the journey itself, you will start finding people who really aligns or who's principally right,
Mm-hmm.
as you are, you know. So that was a very big lesson on setting boundaries. That's a big lesson on discernment for me.
Mm.
Okay. And that is when, I learned that lesson. Or not to freely share, resources with everybody.
Yeah.
And really, in business, contractual terms are freaking important.
Yeah.
Because, you might give somebody a lot of opportunities, but sometimes the opportunities you give them, you care about them so much that they start thinking that they are a co-founder. That's dangerous. It's like putting people back into their place.
I agree. Yeah.
So when you're sharing, about that whole your business is a personality thing, it brought back, lessons like that. I want to share that freely because, these are things, we don't want to just talk about the glamorous stuff.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the shadow side of things, the real challenges that comes. What about yourself? What are some challenges you come with or experience,
Well, I think on the surface, people often see, I think, especially for my businesses, a lot of it is on social media.
Yeah.
Especially with the Diamond brand, you get to see all the events that we have, events that we attend, events that we host, launches, things like that. So it looks like a very glitzy and glamorous life. People are like, oh, you have like diamonds to wear, stuff like that. It's nice. It's nice, but there are a lot of things that go on in the background that create those things that you eventually see. You just see the final product.
It's like creating an illusion. That's what marketing is about.
That's my job. So that's what I have to do. And I
see.
think the reason why I talked about branding and it being your personality is because it's pretty evident in my brands that I inject a lot of my personality into it. And I think you can always hire someone to replace you as a marketing head. I'm the creative director and marketing officer for the Diamond brand. I can be replaced. You can hire someone from a really good agency or someone who has equally similar eye as I for the brand. But at the end of the day, the essence of that personality will still have a at least slight difference.
Yeah, of
if not,
course, because we're all different.
Yeah, if not like nominal, significant difference, right? And I think that really struck to me because I think when I started, this is like very personal and like probably more from my journey transitioning from corporate into like fully like doing this business full time. I was very stuck in I want this to have a certain look, like this is me and this is what I have to present to people. People will see me through these vessels. So my brands were like my vessels to express myself. And I still think they are, but I think it's also about learning how to balance that with if you are putting a business out there, at the end of the day, the numbers still matter. How do you balance finding not just like striving for perfection, but sometimes just getting things done? I think personally, I struggled with that, like needing to just putting things out there and just like, let's just see how people react. You can always adjust along the way, but you don't have to really like launch something and think like it's 100%. It's like how you said, there are different steps to it. It's like gamifying it, right? You think you hit level 1, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm great. And then when you hit level 5 and you look back at level 1, you're like, what was I thinking? So I think it's about just accepting that every step has its own limitations, just achieving it and then moving on to the next step was probably something that I struggled a little bit more with. And my co-founder used to always tell me, don't worry about being perfect. Just worry about putting it out there and getting it done. And then we move on and like think about how to do that. And I think that's quite important in, at least on my businesses where you put a product out, you just have to put it out there and see what people react to it, right? It's hard because it's not something where like in your case, people can slowly sit with it and marinate and think about, okay, let's look back and how has this helped me so far? It's like that's the case for us. We have to be the ones that like, okay, let's look back. How does this help? How has this like helped the business and continue pushing that forward, right? So it's in our cases, I guess it's a bit reversed in that sense because you don't have like a physical product to like tag that to. And I think for me, I used to think that, oh, if we get certain amount of traction, that's like the level of success of this certain initiative that we've done. But I think the level of success also, I had to remind myself that it's on a larger scale of it. Like, how does this help the big picture in the end? And I think the lens of like looking at it from macro and narrow and micro point of view, it's like you have to keep turning that knob, you know, like from a business
In,
owner
out,
perspective.
in, out,
Yeah.
in, out.
And it's like when do you focus on the micro? When do you focus on the macro? When is it relevant?
Doing the right things at the right time.
Yeah, I think time and place is definitely a big thing as well. Sometimes you're presented with opportunities that you're like, oh, this is such a great opportunity, but it's just like the wrong time for the business. And I think at the end of the day, instead of letting like ego come in a way of like, I need to do this so that I have succeeded and like gained this thing. Like I think what I've realized running these few businesses is that you have to think for the good of the business. So it's also like what you said, like a detachment from it. Like instead of like what you want, sometimes it's also about what is good for the business. I think sometimes people don't really think about that too much. They think about, oh, this is something that I started out of my passion, my love for this, and it must be this way. It's because they are blinded by that passion. And I think for people to grow beyond that, they need to decide where is that fine line for them. Because I think the fine line for everyone is quite different. You could be co-founders with someone else and both of your fine lines can be different, but working towards that, how does that happen? Where do you break certain boundaries? Where do you hold back on certain boundaries? I think it's probably something that people need to think about quite a bit. Yeah.
Cool.
So you were saying that I was asking you questions for 15 minutes and now you're asking me stuff. So
What's your
what's
question?
next? What's my question now?
What's next?
How do you think for your line of work, like, so for my businesses, they're very public. It's very social media based. It's writing on stuff, right?
So
how does that relate to yours?
Mine is very private because most people who come to me, they come to me through word of mouth or referrals, you know. So unless people have experienced my work, the rest of people can't really find me. So partly also because, you know, if you think carefully, you know, I work with people's secrets. And these secrets need to be confidential. So I take confidentiality really important because this is about respect. Okay. And so there's a lot of things I can really say. So I give you an analogy. If you're a kingmaker of a king and then the enemy of the king knows who the kingmaker is, they'll surely go after to eliminate the kingmaker first.
Yeah.
Because without the kingmaker, the king might become dysfunctional. So, you know, the kind of work that I do is a lot of strategy, a lot of foresight thinking, you know, and also hindsight thinking as well. And thinking is only one thing. How do we execute operations, you know, successfully? And how do we really, whatever that we see things that's on the ground is really what it is, rather than what we want it to be. So it requires a lot of detachment. You know, to solve a problem, we have to first identify the real problem, because most of the time we experience symptoms or effects, but those are not the real problems.
So considering how people come to you with like problems, it's always like, this is my problem, solve it.
That's what they think is the problem, but it's always the case where that's not the problem, that's a symptom of a deeper problem itself.
Yeah.
So to solve it, we have to find the original cause.
Do you think like that causes like you to burn out? Like, do you feel like you need to, would you feel,
you know, burnout is the
affected?
effect of misalignment, fundamentally. You're misaligned to doing something and then you put a lot of energy into something. It doesn't give you the energy back. That's what burnout is really about.
So it's just like focusing on the wrong things.
Not just wrong things, you know, but things that you're misaligned about, but you have no idea how to navigate around the internal misalignment. So you keep on doing the thing because socially is the right thing to do, because that's the narrative that's presented, right? And you believe in that. So if you're really passionate about something, passion is fire, isn't it? Burnout is also talking about how the fire disappears, extinguish.
Yeah.
If you're really passionate about things that matters to you, you'll put the energy naturally into it. So it's almost not possible to be burnout. You'll get tired, but that's not the same as burnout, because if you're tired and you do the things that matters to you, you'll recover fast.
Yeah.
Because the energy cycle, the wave, you know, is going to be faster and faster and faster. So people who are burnout, I ask of you to examine, you know, your misalignment in your life. Is whatever you're currently doing really what you want to do? Or is that something that you took it on among yourself simply because once upon a time you didn't know what to do, you saw that was what other people are doing, and you decided to follow the herd mentality?
How do you work around that in general? Like, do you find that there's a problem for yourself to work around sometimes? Like maybe you come across a situation where maybe you think you approach a certain client or issue?
I think my irritation and frustration always lies in one thing. People who keep lying to themselves. Because when you lie to yourself, naturally you have to lie to everybody around you.
Yeah.
I think that's one. Then the other thing is people who are irresponsible. You tell them they are fucking up something, and then they refuse to respond to be responsible for it or to be accountable for it. Have you done a renovation for your house?
No. But are you going to bring up like contractors and stuff?
Well, not everybody is bad, but I've encountered horrifying ones whereby you are on the side more than any of them are. And then
That's
you're
something.
wondering what the fuck is wrong with you. And then
Like, what am I paying for?
that's one. Then the other thing is, you tell them, you give him a solution how to fix the problem, which is very simple. You just need a site manager on the ground.
Yeah.
And they can't even resolve that. That means they have workers out
like
there.
they're blindsided by what
They're
these-
headless. No, it's not even blindsided when you tell somebody feedback, for more than 50 times. And then there's no response. There's only blaming. Oh, I don't know where is he? I don't know where is that. Hello, I pay you to do your job.
That's true.
Why am I doing your job for you? That's your job to know.
Well, I think like that aside, like even when you work with partners or whatever, and like there will always be problems.
But how can you keep saying you don't know what's happening to your business? Since you say this is your business and you're responsible for it, and responsible means you're responsible for all the outcomes.
So it's pretty much like a lack of ownership.
It's not just a lack of ownership, it's like priority shifted. But even priority shifted, we take this whole thing and we bring into business. So what happened to the business? How you run the business is a function of how you run your life.
Yeah.
How you treat relationship or your business relationship is how you handle relationship in your life.
I agree.
So most people think that business is business. They justify why their family is dysfunctional because they spend all their energy on the business. What a narrative to blame the business. What a transference of responsibility.
It's already usually an existing.
Whatever you do is an
Issue.
extension of who you are. Ma.
Yeah, it's correct.
It's like around you, you're the center of it.
Yeah.
So if it's not your problem, then who's the problem? Your mom, your dad, or your customer is the problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, technically the only constant is you, so it has to be you.
You don't get clients, you are the problem. You get bad clients, you can't handle it properly. That's your problem. Bad clients come to you, not necessarily your problem. Depends.
It depends. I think it depends on the energy you put out and what you attract.
Correct. You attract people who can teach you the soul lesson that you need to experience.
Yeah, but it's also up at that point, like, do they want to have that lesson in their books? Do they want to tackle this? Right. It's usually a lot of
Free will,
denial.
right?
Yeah, it's like, I feel like it's a lot of denial sometimes.
Oh no lah, this is not a problem.
Or they'll be like, no, it's not my problem. Like,
It's my
them.
problem. So the client is a problem. I pay you money and then I'm the problem that you can't deliver your job.
I mean, I think there can be demanding clients, but they're
No,
usually...
how is it demanding when
No, I feel like there can be demanding clients out there. That could be like a slight problem, but it's just how you manage them, right? So...
Imagine your renovation that was supposed to be finished in 31st December is still ongoing. It's been delayed for 4 months.
Sounds like
It's not a 4 weeks delay. It's a 4 months delay. And then every time you ask them for commitment, a timeline, a schedule, they went radio silent.
It's a red flag.
That's a red flag. That is a red flag. So we have to prepare legal counsels to deal with matters like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we found out there's cheating involved.
That's tough. I think that also is definitely very prominent in businesses in general. Like,
but whatever you put out there, you're going to get more of whatever that. If somebody doesn't hold their business with integrity, they're going to lose it.
yeah, absolutely.
Because it tells you that, they don't have integrity in their life. So how can they hold anything? Holding something holds. If your integrity has hold, then you can't hold things.
Yeah.
So people start losing money, people start losing clients, people start losing things.
Where do you think is like a point where people may start to lose sight of like these things? Sometimes they dig these holes for themselves,
They did, of course they did. You're the cause of your suffering, but you're also the master of your reality.
Yeah.
You're constantly creating your reality. Just that, you play the victimized role, you think that, life is unfair to you, blah, 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 as though life owes you something. But no lah, we create our reality. Whatever work you do. Yeah. That's the price of it. The benefit you get from it, the consequences you get from it, the good ones you get, the bad one you get. It's all part of the parcel.
Yeah.
But if we look at it, right, there's no such thing as good or bad. There's just lessons. But if we frame it this way, right, then every day is a dance.
It's a piece of the pie eventually, right? When you look at it all. And sometimes people forget that that opportunities that they have, they should be grateful for also. It's like a mindset thing where they're like, oh, I should get this because I've done this. It's like input, output. How much input you get, they expect a certain output.
And sometimes it's totally unrealistic because they don't even know their place in this world. So when I say place in this world, you don't know where you stand in this world. So there's a lot of false expectations about how things really is versus what reality actually is. And I think running a business, we have to be always so grounded. Being grounded is one thing. Grounded also means being rooted.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't, it's like keeping your head in the sky, but your feet on the ground.
It's like how far can you get?
Correct.
Up there, right? Yeah. I've definitely had my fair share of people.
But why is it up there? Why is it not down there? Isn't it interesting? We always think that it's about climbing. Why not? What if hell is the same as heaven? What if sometimes the journey requires to go down, to go deep in the roots in order for you to find the heaven down there?
I mean, I think in
why do we
foundation,
assume?
right?
Why do we assume that heaven is up there? The pinnacle is always up there. What if it's down there?
So it's like getting your hands dirty and like doing the...
And in the process of doing, you find the gold. You find your gems, you find the treasures. And the treasures is not out there, it's inside of you.
It's like a mine.
Yeah.
It's a mine out there.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Because people believe that the answer is out there, but they don't realize the answer is in there. When I talk about the answer is inside of them, it's like a foreign concept.
Well, I think it's also about... If it's reaching up there, it's like something that they've not reached. It's unachievable to them at that point, right? So where they are now, they wouldn't necessarily look to, hey, this is what I have on the ground. They'll be like, I want to get something unattainable because I feel like I'm not there. So it makes them also maybe feel comfortable about, I don't have this because it's unreachable up there.
But when did they start believing in a narrative that is up there or out there?
Just because they can't reach it, it's not at arm's length, yeah? Like your ground is at arm's length, you can reach the ground. But whether you want to dig into it and dig into yourself and do the work is something else. But the up above is unknown and it's comfortable because they're like, I don't have it because it's unknown and I can't reach it.
And therefore, I don't have to commit to it. So people want something, but they didn't commit themselves to it.
And they'll be like, oh, I tried, but like it didn't work.
What a sad story for you then. But you only have one life. You either do it or you don't. And if you're going to do something, do a damn good job. Because if you don't, then you're wasting your energy onto something and hoping for results.
How do you find like the trend of people actually looking inward nowadays and being a bit more conscious about it? I think, at least from my perspective, I think in social media, what's portrayed, and I think with also just a growing number of people who actually now want to do something for themselves, they're like, they think they've looked inward enough, done some work, and like, okay, this is my value. I want to put it out there to people. Like starting businesses and stuff, or like starting something that's out of passion. Like they believe they have the ability to do it.
I think entrepreneurship is really the key to getting out of poverty. It's one of the fastest way to teach a person financial literacy.
It's also about helping other people, right? Like in entrepreneurship, a lot of it comes from collaboration as well.
Yeah. And one of the things that people think is that just because you do well in school, you're going to be successful in your life. But school, unfortunately, prepares you to be a good worker. It trains you to think like a worker. And that's why not everybody who fare well in school actually fare well out in the reality world. And oftentimes people get into a shock or froze state and they get attached to their past successes that they don't really live in the present anymore. So they believe that their life is in a certain way. They believe they're smart, but reality shows otherwise. But they're still holding on to that fixation. And that's
like the only thing they can hold on to,
correct,
right?
Because there's a level of ontological arrogance in terms of they believing how the world is, where the world is constantly giving them feedback that that's not what it is.
And then that comes back to think about acceptance and denial.
Correct. So what is true acceptance? When do we... Instead of saying, okay, I accept it for what it is as a resignation to fate, but, coming to realize that actually that whole programming of needing to control something come from your own control issues because you lost control in your life. And you're trying to establish control in all sorts of ways that no longer serve you, and it's creating more dysfunctionality, whether it's in your relationship, in your career, in your finance, in your health, in your fulfillment. It's putting a toll on you. When can we say that we can let it go and just surrender and trust? So when was the last time you trust? Do you even trust yourself? Do you have a precedence of trusting yourself? Then we're going to go back and look into agreements. How well do you keep your agreements with yourself? How do you not?
How do you hold yourself accountable to what you say?
Yeah, and when do you break agreements? Because success, confidence isn't about attending a workshop or looking good.
Yeah.
Because you can wear the nicest suit, but you still feel like shit, insecure. Whereas confidence really comes from net results. Your success is more than your failure by one. It's a mathematical equation. Because if you got more results in your life, naturally you'll be a confident person. You don't have to try. It's not a wannabe thing. But you'll be confident because you know that this is how it works.
I think realistically also, people can tell, like the people around you, up to a certain point, there's only so much pretending you can do.
I'm not in the business of that, so I can't really relate. Because when you pretend, you have to keep up lies, because you have to tell yourself a lie, and then you have to keep up the lie.
Yeah.
But that disorient a person from their alignment to the truth, which is objective reality.
Yeah.
Which means if you choose the lie, you can't have results in your life. You're not going to manifest.
Yeah.
So your alignment to the truth, your commitment to yourself and to the truth needs to be there in the first place as a premise for any work. Whether it's inner work or external work, they're all the same. As above, so below. As within, so without.
I agree. So currently with like the increasing trend of like people becoming business owners, how do you see work that would need to be done for them to keep themselves like afloat, let's say, at a bare minimum afloat?
What is afloat? May I clarify?
I think people get lost in a lot of this. There are different aspects to it, right? People get lost in the money I want to make, the success I want people to perceive, the burnout I have, but maybe not really want to share.
I asked them to ask their why. Why are they doing what they are doing? Is it really their calling, or was it something that somebody gave them an idea, or they hold on to a certain narrative, or their father said something to them when they were a child, and then they hold on to that? Because it's important to examine, and don't be afraid to examine what you're holding on to. Because sometimes people are afraid of examining them because they know they have to let go of it. But if you know that there's a fear, chances is there's something there. And it's always worthwhile to look into it. And that's why you have to find all the courage in you to look into it rather than deny it. Because whatever you deny, it will get louder and louder and louder. So that creates suffering. Because it could be easily resolved in one move, but instead you take years to harvest that.
Yeah.
Efficiency. So another thing I think is people are attached to the way of doing things. So what used to work at this level, they keep doing it. And then when they move on to a higher level, they're still doing the old thing. And then they found out that there's no results. And instead of adapting and figuring out the rules, since every level of consciousness, there's a different set of rules. Every level of the business, there's a different set of rules. Some people just don't want to change. So they keep banging on the same wall again and again and again until they give up. But in the moment when they give up, they're not really giving up. They're giving up their old way of doing things. New solutions emerge. So that fluidity to be able to let go of what we think works for us is going to be very helpful, because when something doesn't work, you adapt accordingly. So adaptation becomes very important.
On a completely separate note, like in relation to, let's say, the people have done their own work and then they decide, oh, okay, this is a passion that I have. Like, what do you think there are telltale signs of like you're sitting on a passion that can grow, can be more? When do people know that I have like looked inward enough? I've done this work, and
actually it doesn't really matter, since we were talking about it's about the essence itself of who you are. Your passion is the essence itself.
So it's about really just knowing you, as being confident that this is who I am as a person.
Not being confident, go on to the inward journey to find out who you really are, not what you think you are. Verify that. if what you think you are is really true. Find that thing, find the iron inside of you, the treasures, the gem inside of you.
How do you
And
think
then
people will know though? Because people will just be like, yeah, I think this is me. I do this all the time.
you do this all the time doesn't mean it's you. You do this all the time because you've been doing it all the time. And you started believing that's you because of familiarity, comfort.
Yeah, so how would you say people can break out of that
Inner
if
work.
they are stuck in a work?
Inner work, really, inner work. Because inner work allows you not just to examine one aspect of your life, but you look at your whole life in a very holistic way. You look at your history. You look at what makes you you in the first place. How do you become the person you are today? We
Or
begin
rather
to
also, who do you want to be?
Who do you want to be? Like, for example, we examine who you are, where do you come from, what do I do, where do I go next? In fact, all the questions people are asking can be categorized under the four.
Yeah.
Because when people are asking, what is my purpose? They're asking, what do I do? It's a subset of that question as a category.
Mm-hmm.
But how can you answer that if you never answer, where do I come from? But how can you answer, where do you come from if you never know who you are? So, since we have a whiteboard, let me just write that down. For visualization purpose. So let's say this is you. First one is, who am I? Then we have, where do I?
So it's all rooted to purpose, don't you think?
Well, purpose, is what do I do? And if you don't answer that, you can't answer where do I go next? What's the next level?
Going could also encompass well, I guess it's interrelated.
Yeah. Yeah. The four equations, all questions people are asking for can be mapped in all these things. Then life becomes so simple, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's go back to you. At the core, what are you? What makes you you? What's your essence? What's your true essence? So we call it essence work. And then, of course, everything is an extension of us. If you figure out your essence, then the next thing you're going to figure out is how do you apply the essence into physical form that's tangible. Instead of thinking how is it going to pay your bills, start thinking about what kind of difference you want to make, what kind of value you want to add. If you're adding value, people will naturally pay you.
Yeah. But I mean, there's also always that transitionary period where people can pay you, but like it might not be enough for you to sustain your lifestyle, right? Then people have to juggle. So then they might find, oh, okay, I'm stuck between this place where I am, let's say, for example, holding a full-time job while trying to fulfill this purpose and this thing that I've decided is my essence and is my core. How then there's also this like battle there, right? Like, oh, I have to fulfill what I need in life to move.
A person is at a battle or conflict simply because in their internal world, they're already in the conflict and they're just projecting that onto these two things. Should I do this? Should I do that? But that's their pattern.
So it's like conviction. Like,
it's not conviction. It's really about, okay, this is what I want. Let me stick to it. Let me focus. This is a pattern thing because some people can focus because their pattern is with focus. Some people swing like a pendulum because that's their pattern. And this pattern has roots of where they came from in their childhood. If a person grew up in an environment where they watch their role models always swinging left and right or fighting in a conflict left and right, they're going to be in that. Because in their world, it's like the mom and the dad is fighting. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. So we say a lot of it is like, I wouldn't say childhood trauma, but a lot of it's from like developmental.
It is childhood trauma. It is developmental. And trauma can also develop our greatest gift.
I agree.
So it's not necessarily all bad. It's a package.
Well, I think it's about how people see it, right? Like, I've gone through this. What can I make better out of it? Or like, what can I do different?
Yeah. And most people don't ask that question. They victimize themselves or they try to hide it.
It's comfortable, right? You don't have to find a solution. It's just, it is this.
Well, I think it takes more work because it creates more bigger issue.
It creates a toll.
Yeah.
On people.
Yeah.
And I think I definitely agree. Like, I've definitely been in a stage where I'm like, this is my circumstance. Well, this is what it is. But I think the question is, how do I break out of that?
But you see, how we deal with our internal problems already tell us how you're going to handle all your external business problems.
Yeah. It shows you how you cope.
How you do the small thing is how you do everything in life.
Yeah, I agree. Which is why I said, like, I think for me at least, like doing so much of the branding and personality of the brands, because of that, I think the process of having been in businesses for maybe 4 or 5 years now forced me to also look at how I solve these things internally. Sometimes it's not just about because it's a business issue, but it's how do I be a better version of myself for the business as well? Because they
If
buy
you're-
product, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
If you're a better version of yourself, your business naturally will go up as well.
You naturally attract the people that you need. They will come into your life also, I
You
think.
don't even need to try.
Yeah, you don't. You're just there.
Yeah.
Because you have decided that this is what I will do. You will do the things that you need to do to get to a certain place. And the people will come. Yeah.
By any chance, have you worked with crises before?
Is he the car guy?
Yeah, the car guy, the house guy, they go around.
He's interviewed my business partner.
I see.
Yeah. So I guess we have an indirect link to him.
I see.
Why?
Oh no, it just suddenly popped in my spirit, so I started asking. Well, somebody actually introduced wanting to feature one of my sites. Asking me whether I was open, to
Like
allowing
property
them.
sites.
Yeah, kind of stuff. So I thought, okay.
So you talked about focus, like people finding their purpose and like having that focus. What do you think about people who just have like one business versus people who have like several? Do you think like several is a focus for them?
Some people get more energy doing multiple things. It's their construct. So I don't think that starting many things is bad if that is their game, because some people are built that way. For example, I'm built that way. So the more things I do, the more efficient I'm forced to become, because I need to make everything work. So it sharpens my precision in making decision, in seeing things. Compared to if you only focus on one thing, okay, your world is built around that one thing. So you get it?
It's like
The
don't
best
put
work-
your eggs in one basket.
No, not quite that. It's like sometimes, the more you want something to work, the more it doesn't work and you don't know why. Whereas sometimes, when you have a detachment to everything, and since you have many things and you have to jump from one to another in the same
Like
amount
being
of
able to
time,
take a step back.
it allows detachment.
Yeah.
So it forces you to make things even better and more efficient and more effective, more aligned to the truth, because you have to make everything work. There's no room for delusions and illusions.
Yeah.
I think you might be able to relate to that since you're running 3 business.
Yeah.
You don't have time to waste on bullshit. But
Yeah,
when
you
people run one thing, sometimes depending on their issue, I'm not gonna make a generalized statement. Some people's issue is they have control issues, they can't delegate stuff.
Or they overthink.
That's a control issue. Perfection, control issues too. Then people who cannot expand out, that's a delegation issue, ma.
Yeah.
Not enough clients, paying clients, limiting belief. So somehow all the business issue fundamentally is rooted back into personal issue.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep emphasizing the importance of personal mastery and doing work, because it's not just about business. You can learn skill set about own business. There's plenty.
Yeah.
You can learn it by yourself too. But this thing about yourself, once you master, you can master everything, because it's how you master your education. So it's an extension.
Yeah. I agree. I'm glad to know we're on the same point, on the same page. But I think also there are a lot of people out there who potentially fake what they are. Like, like the image that we talked about, people are like behind maybe a certain image that they think society wants to see. Do you think you've ever seen like success of like people faking it so much until they actually make it? And whether that's even sustainable?
I've never come across a case that really works lah. Because if you can make it in the first place, you wouldn't fake it. You're talking about that whole thing around positive thinking, believing, I said that that's like a step 13 of 14 steps. The secrets of manifestation. There's so many steps, it's about being rooted, being grounded, stay focused, do the right thing, do the right thing right, do the right thing, do the right thing right, do. Because you're going to be the person, the essence, the embodiment, and then you be. It's a process.
Yeah.
Running a business is a process. There's no room for child play.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there is, but
If you really want to make it
stumble.
work lah.
Yeah.
Some people, they start something not to make it work, to feel like they have started something. Then they already accomplish that already.
Mm-hmm.
But when the challenges come, how do people take it on? That's where you tell whether the person is the real deal or not, how they handle stuff. So I like to see people for how they deal with challenges, because that tells me how far their journey is going to be, where they're going to get stopped, what kind of issues they will face.
Mm.
Then you can say that life is a preparation. All that whole training is a preparation for things that haven't happened. So that when it happens, you really know how to naturally deal with it, because it's really part of your system. So
Yeah.
that's what the inner work personal mastery training is about. Preparation.
Yeah. It's like heating up the oven.
I mean, you don't start to train up for how to kill people or how to win only during war, right? You polish your sword, during low key.
Yeah.
So that when high key, you're ready.
For battle. Yeah.
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 But most people doesn't have the wisdom. So they only do things only when shit happens. They don't prepare. Their whole life is a series of lack of preparation.
No, I think people have been built into this routine of like do. They don't really have, or rather, it's not they don't have time, but they don't make time.
Yeah,
to
they
kind
don't
of-
make time and space.
to think back and see like, hey, what could I have done, or what should I be doing? It's a, I guess it's a modern life city problem. You just follow the wave basically. And I think sometimes that's also why people say, oh, Singapore or cities like that lack that identity. It adds up, right? It's a domino effect.
Yeah. And I want to make a clarification. We all have the same amount of time. How come some people can use the same amount of time to run 10 companies, whereas another person cannot even handle 9 to 5?
Time is something you can't buy.
It's a concept.
It's something that
Space.
everyone has everyone is actually given equal.
Yeah. But do we make space for it?
How do you take advantage of it to your benefit, and what do you want out of it? Yeah, I think people often be like, oh, I'm in a situation where I'm just not as privileged as this next person.
That's a victimization.
That's
justification.
it's a limiting, I would say limiting belief as well.
Please work on yourself.
Please go to him. But
So
yeah,
you're a coach?
I am not.
I see.
I have been interested, I think, in various concepts, and I think inner work is probably something that I probably looked into maybe 7 years ago. Yeah, I think as you grow up, like also being in different environments helps you question. So I went to UK for uni. So I think going there was the culture shock. And then coming back was a whole reverse culture shock again. I'm like, wow, what have I been doing my entire life? So a lot of questions to ask when you go there and you learn about yourself and what you actually believe in. I think a lot of people don't actually understand what their true personal values are. It's just they are told, this is your values, you should believe this. So they're like, oh, okay, I have to do this. So yeah, I think inner work was something that I have learned the hard way through many different scenarios, whether it's work or business or relationships, family. It all adds up. Yeah, and you really think about actually at the core of it, if you are built so well and so strong with a foundation that can't be shaken, your approach to every single problem shouldn't be too different.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's
That's
the
why
same
how you do
thing.
the smallest things, how you do everything.
Yeah, you're grounded. It's like, I wouldn't say it's rigidity. It's just
You're
it is-
rooted. You
yeah,
know what's come.
Yeah,
The cause and effect.
yeah. So yeah, I think it's definitely a journey. I don't think everyone or anyone ever like stops. I think even for someone like yourself, you probably from time to time look back and be like, what else can I do more? Do you find that?
No.
No, you're like, yeah, I've got
barely
it.
have time to rest. I just finished my day at 5 a.m. And then I'm here now.
Wow, that's something.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have time to think about, because every moment, this is the best choice. Let's go for it. Let's stick to it.
When you think it's the time, then you'll be like, oh, okay, I think I need to look inward and like, let's see where I am right now.
So I value my personal cultivation and mastery and development. So I do fly around to different parts of the world, to train with my teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's like you taking time out for yourself already.
Yeah, you can say that. And of course, when I'm there, I'm also solving other cases as well. So there's always a line of being kept in check. I have my teachers who keep me in check, just as, I keep my students in check as well.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, it's probably like the nature of your work that kind of helps you. You're always in that headspace where you're like, these are things to reflect. And then maybe for like a slight microsecond, you're like, hey, whether that relates to me or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Juicy stuff like having an eating disorder for like 10 years.
You do?
I did. I did. Very long ago. I wouldn't even, I think there was a point in time where I didn't even buy canteen food. I was literally packing my lunch and not eating it even in the canteen. I used to eat it in the canteen. It slowly like plummeted into like just eating on my own in the classroom. Because it's an isolated world when you live in that denial and you're like, oh, I'm fine, but you're actually really not. Yeah. That was probably also what triggered a lot of inner work. Like, why do I need that control? What control did I lack before?
Was it a self-worth thing related with shame and embarrassment?
So the funny thing is that for my eating disorder, it was not externally induced. There was no one told me like, hey, you're fat.
I mean, internally, like, it's obviously...
It's pure internal. I literally looked at the mirror one day. I was like... I looked at the mirror and like, your face is the thing you see the most, right? And I looked in the mirror and I was like, I can't look like this. I just decided for myself, I was like, no, I can't. And slowly, like, I just cut things out, like cut carbs, cut fat. Honestly, I cut so many things at that point, I really don't remember what I'm eating. I actually had a food journal back then.
Oh, wow.
Like, psychotically recorded every single thing I ate. I actually threw the journal away maybe about 3 years ago. Sometimes I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have thrown that. I want to see, like, what that state of mind was back then. But then at the same time, I'm also like, I think it's a past that I can let go. Whatever memories that I hold from that, or rather experiences that I've learned from that, I think is good enough. So yeah, it was a very big part of my life and identity then. And then it slowly transitioned into, I clearly have things to work on. Yeah. I think everyone has their own story to tell.
Yeah.
And when you find that resonance and you identify with your problems, I think eventually when it becomes you, then you have that avenue to kind of like step forward and be like, hey, this is me, this is how I'm gonna work. That's the you here. Why you do it, right? Yeah. That's at least that's how I approached it. Yeah.
I used to do videos, that kind of stuff. So
well, it seems like you dabble in quite a lot of things. You have property,
videos, all that kind of stuff. That's what I meant by, I'm the kind of last resort people come to, to solve cases. Not necessarily inner work training. Sometimes it's operations, big operations. So the kind of word I see is a little bit different.
You've seen it all.
Really evil, malice. And the funny thing is, because kidnapping is a death penalty in almost all countries, correct?
Yeah.
So oftentimes it's plotted by people that know you so well.
That's
or
true.
who think that they know you so well, who knows your schedule, routine so well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's quite sad, right? The closest people are the ones that can hurt you the most.
Yeah. Just went to the toilet and I thought maybe I should share with you what I really do. What I do, what I told you is true, but there's also other parts of it that it becomes an extension.
So do you become like a mediator for this then?
Mediator, deal maker. I enjoy that. I enjoy. But the kind of craziness is really crazy.
Do you think it puts you at risk?
Yes.
But you live for that.
So imagine this 3 a.m. sharp. You happen to be awake and then you saw a whole phenomenon. Your laptop is sitting down there on the table. The webcam suddenly turned on by itself. And then the mouse starts moving by itself. It starts opening up folders that you don't even know that exist in your computer. And then document the whole thing from the outside.
So someone like hacked into the computer?
Yeah. And I'm not talking about the normal kind of... Okay, the one where people click link, those are called baits.
Yeah.
Those are not hacking.
Yeah.
That's not the same. That one that I experienced is a whole different level
Like a
because
full
that,
on like hard software hack.
yes, and it come from the Wi-Fi IP address.
I
So
mean, I guess.
you're right lah. You know, I see really crazy stuff, and sometimes it puts me at risk
Mm.
because you know when do I help and when do I not? Especially when I'm the last person that received the SOS.
Like like their last call. You are the
They
last
wouldn't have
call.
called me if
Yeah.
they could have called the police or whatsoever. It's because the system wouldn't be able to get them out.
Mm.
So I do that kind of stuff, and it's crazy shit.
Do you find that impacts like
It's really high intensive.
yeah.
And sometimes, you know, the trauma, you know, I don't have time to process the shock or the
yeah, that's why I asked you like
trauma.
how do you process like taking on people's
Sometimes it takes
troubles?
years, you know, and then I didn't even know I took it on because after I handled that, I need to handle other business stuff for that.
It like manifests in other ways. Like
Then
it
sometimes,
comes out in other ways.
that years later, you know, I sat down with my teacher talking about this, reflecting.
You're like,
and then,
hey,
and
maybe
then my body starts shaking, and then I realized that I haven't let go of that trauma, so let me let that go in Hawaii.
have you read the book The Body Keeps Score?
The body keeps score.
Mhm.
Not yet.
It talks about how the body actually keeps trauma,
Yeah.
and trauma is once you experience it, even in the smallest of magnitudes, your body remembers.
Yeah.
And it's literally about how the body keeps score.
Correct.
Like how do you play this game? How do you balance it?
So that's my work. Lor. That's my work. I teach people how to heal that, how to let go of that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want it to release because release means you're releasing. You don't want it to come back. So we have to let it go in a permanent way so that we can move on in our life and taking on that lesson. So as long as that thing is transformed into lesson, then it means the process is complete.
Yeah.
And yes, our body remembers everything. That's why touch is so important.
I think all the senses.
All the senses. You know, in the education that we are in, they only focus on eye and hearing. Not so much for touch, not so much for taste or smell.
Yeah.
So we don't really know how to use them at the advanced level. But do you know that from a person's smell, you can tell everything about them? Imagine all your senses are honed to a certain perfection or impeccability. The way you navigate this world, you're no longer using one operating system. You have 5 and more fully awakened.
It's like how people adapt when they become like blind or deaf.
Yeah,
or-
their other senses go up.
Yeah.
Even when your body is in pain, your senses go up. That's why we get irritated because there's so many information we're picking up that our system is overloaded.
Yeah. I mean that's why the body's built this way, right? It's built to have many defense mechanisms so you can survive.
I mean, defense mechanism is...
I mean, not defense mechanisms also, but just like surviving mechanisms.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. You good?
I'm good. You can only help people so much. At the end of the day, you need to want to help yourself. And it's your journey to be on, right? You decide how you want to proceed, how you want to live. And I think that would dictate everything else that you do. How you treat people around you, how you treat situations, how you treat yourself, most importantly as well. So yeah, that's probably like my summary of everything.
Life doesn't come at you or against you. Life comes from you. Which means that, you know, your business is an extension of who you are and what you are. Find out your essence, find out your why, find out what makes you tick every day when you wake up. And live that life well and make the best out of it before another lifetime just pass. So yeah. Be responsible for your reality. And not happy about something, change it.
Don't be in denial.
Don't be in denial. Don't be an ass.
Accept your fate and work with it. Yeah. Yeah, I think that sums up for today.
Sayonara. Arigato.
Thank you.
Gozaimasu.